going to take this 10mm screw out, use a 10mm socket. Take that out. Now you can grab the air duct, and you might have to pry this out a little bit. Now we're going to take this air duct off. You can use a small straight blade screwdriver. Just get underneath here. Just try to pull this out. It's just clipped in on both sides. I'll just slide that out of the way. And over here, this piece comes off. Just slides out. It might be clipped in a little bit. We're going to disconnect some of the connectors up on top. You can just use a straight blade screwdriver if you need to, or if you can just get underneath there, just pop that off. Slide those out of the way. There's a connector down here. Disconnect that connector. It's for a coolant temp sensor. And you might need a pick just to get underneath there. Pop that up. And there's another temp sensor down here. Just pop that off the same way. You can just use a pick. Just get underneath there. Slide that off. The retainer right here, you can take these wires off, pop that out. Hold on. Just use a trim tool. Pop that off. We're going to remove this cover. Use a T30 socket. Take these screws out. Using a pick or a screwdriver, just pop these clips out. Just push them in while you're pulling up on the cover, and it slides out of your way. Disconnect the connector right here. You can just use a pick, just slide up on the tab, and then use the trim tool and pop this wire out. There's another clip right here. Pop this clip up. Same with right here. You can just use a pick or a screwdriver. Pop that clip out. Take this nut off this ground. Use a 8mm socket. Loosen up the nut. Take that off. And slide the wire out. Now we're going to disconnect all the coils. There's a ratchet mechanism. Just slide this up, and then that disconnects the connector. Just do that for all of those. You can slide this wiring harness out of the way. Now there's a wiring harness that goes down here. We want to disconnect that. There's a retainer right there. Just use your trim tool. Pop that up. There's a couple connectors. Again with the trim tool, pop this one off the retainer and disconnect this connector right here. There's another ratchet mechanism. You slide that out and that disconnects. There's a oil pressure sensor right here. You want to disconnect that. Push down on the tab. Disconnect that, and then one more. It's further down. Push down on the tab and slide that up, and then that wiring harness can move out of the way. Just move it over here. good right there. I'm going to take these coolant hoses off, use a hose clamp tool, just squeeze the hose clamp, and then you can move it down. Do the same on this one. And you can grab the hoses, wiggle it back and forth, and slide it off. There we go. You might lose a little coolant. You might want a drain bucket underneath. Then there's some hoses on the back. We want to move those hose clamps also. Now we'll take these back two clamps off. I'm just going to use a different type of hose clamp pliers, but the same idea. Loosen the hose clamps. And slide the hoses off, just like that. Just move that hose out of the way. And do the same with the lower one. And if the hose doesn't come off, you can always try using a pick. Yeah, let's go. Just try to slide that off. Now we're going to take the bolts out. Use a 10mm socket. One of the bolts is down below here. And one's up on top and one's further back here underneath. There's 3 holding it in, so take those out. And the last one right on top. And when you pull this off, you might have some more coolant rushing out, so you might want to put a bucket underneath. In the back here, there is a clip. It is fairly difficult to get to or to reach. You want to use a pick. Just try to get that clip off. Right there. This one's already pushed up a little bit. I'm going to slide that out. Oh, and it fell. That's okay. We'll grab it later. Then again, just try. Then you can grab the whole housing and just lightly twist it back and forth. And it slides right out. So we get it out. There's one more hose underneath here. We can take that hose off. Just use the hose clamp pliers. And slide that hose off. is. Now I'm going to use a rag and a little brake parts cleaner. Just clean up the surface area right here. That looks good. Now we'll put the bottom hose on first. Line that up. Make sure the hose looks like it's going the correct direction. And move the hose clamp over. That's good right there. Now slide it in position. And you want to make sure that slides into that tube. All right, that's on completely. Oops. Now we're going to put this clip on. There it goes. All right, that's clipped in. Now I'll get the bolt started. Yeah, once those are all in, then just snug those down. And if you can get a torque wrench in there, you want to torque those to 70 inch-pounds. It's pretty tight, so do the best you can. Now we'll reinstall the hose down below. Move the hose clamp in position. And release the hose clamp. Slide it on. Now these hoses in the front, line those up. Put the hose clamp over. And these are the type that get locked and then you release them. Just get it in the right position. And then you just unlock it like that. You can use a screwdriver or mini pry bar. Do the same with this one. Get that in the right position. Unlock it, make sure it's all the way around. That looks good. Now down below, we're going to connect that connector. Line that up, lock it in. Now there's two little pins on the bottom of this. Those are going to line into the slots. And it's going to line up right there. Then we can connect this connector. Lock that one down. And down below, I'm going to connect the O2 sensors. connector right here. Lock that down. Reach down below for the other blue connector. That one's going to line up right here. Push it down and lock it in place. And connect the oil pressure sensor. And you can put the O2 sensors in their retainers. It's going to line up right there. Plug these connectors in. Push that lock down. And same with this retainer. And just go back and reinstall the coils, the coil connectors. And over here, connect the connector there and the retainer. And then put the ground right there. Put the nut on. And just snug that down, not too tight. Now this hose, line that up and lock it down. Put the cover on, line it up, lock it in place, and put the 2 screws in. Tighten those down. Take this piece, we're going to slide it in position, back, get that lined up. Put the bolt in, tighten it down, and slide this hose in place. And lock it down. Now we're going to add the coolant, but there's a bleed screw right here. You just want to take a straight blade screwdriver, loosen this up. That loosened up. I can take a funnel, add the appropriate coolant. As you're adding the coolant, you can hear air coming out of where the bleed screw is. And once you notice if there's any bubbles or coolant coming out of there, then you can close the bleeder screw. Now there's a little coolant starting to come out, so I'm going to close that bleeder screw. Just snug it up, not too tight. And then you want to run the engine for about 10 minutes, checking the coolant level and just making sure the engine isn't overheating. After that, shut the vehicle down, let it cool down, and adjust the coolant level.